In 2023, researchers at Harvard Business School conducted a study on workplace apologies. They found that people who apologized more than 3 times per week were 47% more likely to be interrupted in meetings, 31% less likely to receive promotions. And here's the disturbing part. Were rated as less competent by their peers, even when their actual performance was identical to those who apologized less. The apology didn't repair relationships. It redistributed power. I'm Dr. Mira, and what you're about to learn is why the cultural narrative around apologies is not just incomplete, it's strategically backward. Because in the neurological calculus of social hierarchy, every apology you give is a transaction, and most people are selling themselves at a loss. Let me show you why. We're taught from childhood that apologizing is the mark of maturity, of empathy, of emotional intelligence. This is what fills parenting books. This is what corporate training modules preach, and for good reason. In certain contexts, apologies serve a genuine social function. They acknowledge harm, they signal accountability, they restore equilibrium. But here's what they don't tell you. Apologies evolved as submission signals in primate hierarchies. When a lower status chimpanzee approaches a dominant male after a conflict, it engages in what primatologists call appeasement behavior. Lowered posture, averted gaze, submissive vocalizations, the biological equivalent of, I'm sorry, and it works. In that context, because the goal is simple, avoid physical retaliation, signal that you're not a threat, restore your position within the group by acknowledging the hierarchy. Now here's the problem. We've taken this evolutionary submission mechanism and applied it to modern competitive environments, boardrooms, negotiations, professional relationships, contexts where signaling submission doesn't protect you, it categorizes you. When you apologize in a hierarchical setting, something happens in the brain of the person receiving that apology. Their anterior cingulate cortex, the region responsible for social status assessment, registers your submission. Not consciously, neurologically. And once that registration occurs, their behavior toward you shifts. Subtly, measurably, irreversibly. They interrupt you more, they dismiss your ideas faster, they assume you're less competent. Not because they're cruel, because you taught their brain to see you as lower status. And here's where it gets truly dangerous. Most people don't even realize they're doing it. Let me break this down into something you can use. There are 3 types of apologies. 2 of them destroy your status, 1 weaponizes it. The first type is the submission apology. This is the one you're most familiar with. I'm so sorry, it won't happen again. I don't know what I was thinking. I feel terrible about this. Notice the pattern. Over-explanation, self-flagellation, emotional excess. Here's what's happening neurologically. When you over-explain an apology, you're signaling anxiety. And anxiety is a low-status emotion. Your brain is essentially saying, I'm afraid of the consequences of your disapproval. I need you to validate me. I need you to tell me we're okay. And the moment you need that validation, you've handed them the power to withhold it. Let me give you an example. You're 5 minutes late to a meeting. The submission apology sounds like this. I'm so sorry I'm late. Traffic was horrible. I left early, but there was an accident. I feel terrible for keeping everyone waiting. It won't happen again. What you've just done is train everyone in that room that your time is less valuable than theirs, that your comfort with their potential disapproval is low, that you can be destabilized by minor inconveniences. The second type is the transactional apology. This is better. Marginally. I apologize for being late. Here's what I'm doing to prevent it in the future. Notice the difference. Acknowledgement without self-destruction. A clear corrective action. No emotional spillage. This retains about 50% of your status. You've acknowledged the error without signaling that you're devastated by it. You've treated it as a logistical problem, not a moral failing. This works in client relationships, in situations where you need to maintain credibility but also take responsibility. But there's a third type, and this is where it gets sophisticated. The strategic apology. I was wrong about X. Here's what I learned, and here's the new direction based on that learning. Notice what just happened. You didn't apologize for being wrong. You reframed the error as evolution. You didn't lower your status. You elevated it by demonstrating intellectual flexibility and strategic recalibration. This is what leaders do. They don't apologize for mistakes. They acknowledge data, adjust strategy, and move forward. The apology becomes a demonstration of competence, not an admission of weakness. But here's the part most people miss. The reason most apologies fail isn't the apology itself. It's the pattern. Let me explain the serial apologizer death spiral. It works like this. You apologize once for something minor, being a few minutes late, asking a clarifying question, having a different opinion. The other person registers it neurologically. Your status drops slightly. The next time you interact, they unconsciously test that new status. They interrupt you. They dismiss your idea. And because you're conflict averse, because you've been taught that harmony is the goal, you apologize again. For being interrupted, for not being clear enough, for bothering them, and now the pattern is locked. You are the apologizer. And once you're in that role, every interaction reinforces it. They expect you to apologize. You expect yourself to apologize. And the cycle accelerates until you're apologizing for things that aren't even your responsibility. I've watched this happen in corporate environments. Someone starts apologizing for asking questions. Sorry, quick question. Sorry to interrupt. Sorry, can I clarify? Within 6 months, they're apologizing for existing. And within a year, they're overlooked for promotions, excluded from strategic decisions, and genuinely confused about why their competence isn't being recognized. It's being recognized as lower status. So let me give you the decision matrix. When do you actually apologize, and when do you refuse? Apologize if you caused measurable, specific harm through direct action. You missed a deadline that cost the client money. You shared confidential information. You made a factual error that misled the team. Real harm, clear causation, direct responsibility. In those cases, use the transactional or strategic apology. Acknowledge it, correct it, move on. One time, not repeatedly, not with emotional excess. Once. Do not apologize if someone is offended by your boundary. Do not apologize if you're managing someone else's emotional state. Do not apologize for having needs, for taking up space, for disagreeing, or for being inconveniently correct. And here's the critical part. Do not apologize to end conflict. Apologize to resolve it. Those are not the same thing. Apologizing to end conflict is capitulation. You're trading your position for temporary harmony, and the other person learns that applying pressure makes you fold. So the next conflict, they'll apply more pressure, and you'll fold faster. But what do you say instead? Because silence in the face of conflict isn't always strategic. Sometimes it's just avoidance. Here's the framework. 3 phrases that acknowledge without submission. First, I see how that landed. Not, I'm sorry you feel that way, which is passive-aggressive blame shifting. Just acknowledgement. You're confirming you received the information. You're not apologizing for their perception. You're not taking responsibility for their emotional response. You're simply stating, I understand this had an impact. Second, let me be clearer. Not sorry, I didn't explain that well. You're not apologizing for their misunderstanding. You're offering precision. You're treating it as a calibration issue, not a competence issue. Third, here's what I can do. Not sorry, I can't help with that. You're redirecting to capability. You're not apologizing for limitations. You're defining parameters. Notice the pattern. None of these phrases concede status. They maintain your position while addressing the situation. They are acknowledgments, not apologies. And that distinction is everything. Now let me give you the one scenario where refusing to apologize will destroy you faster than over-apologizing. If you have caused genuine, significant harm, if your action directly damaged someone's livelihood, safety, or reputation, and you refuse to take responsibility because you're worried about status, you will not just lose respect, you will lose everything. Because there's a difference between strategic non-apology and sociopathic denial. The former is about not apologizing for existing. The latter is about not apologizing for destruction. If you can't tell the difference, you're not ready to use this framework. You'll just become the person everyone avoids because you're exhausting to deal with. And that's not high status. That's just unpleasant. So here's what I need you to understand. Respect is not distributed based on who's nicer. It's distributed based on who values their position more than approval. Every time you apologize unnecessarily, you're announcing that harmony is worth more to you than your standing. And once people know that about you, they will use it. Not because they're cruel, because you taught them it works. I'm Dr. Mira. Stop apologizing for taking up space. And if you want to understand the other invisible status signals you're broadcasting without knowing it, Watch the next video on high-status body language because the apology is just one piece of the hierarchy you're navigating every day. Master the hierarchy.